Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Real Christianity Podcast. So glad you could join us today. And yes, you are not seeing me, you are seeing nothing. Just my voice. If you're on YouTube, you're just hearing my voice. If you're on SoundCloud, obviously you're just hearing my voice. And we changed the format. I did a YouTube channel first, and it was the first episode I did a video. And I didn't really like that, so I'm just going to do audio for now. If I go back to video, I'll let you know. I might go back to video, but I don't know. If I get a better camera, I'll probably do that. But welcome back to the Real Christianity Podcast. I'm so glad that y'all are back here. I hope you like and subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube and SoundCloud. Today we're going to be talking about serving Jesus, and that's the topic. But let me say this. Before we get into the topic, let me say this. I didn't explain this in the first episode that I did with my sister on encouraging your leaders. That's on YouTube. Go check that out. Great video there. But why did I name the podcast Real Christianity is when I was thinking about starting either a YouTube channel or a podcast, I was also thinking of a name. And I was reading an article one day about a year ago, and the article was about why Christianity was dying in America or something like that. And of course, in which I knew, that's true, but I was reading it, and I can't remember who wrote the article, and I can't remember, it might have been USA Today, but someone did. I know someone wrote it, and he was talking about how the fastest growing religion in America is the non-religion, is no religion. It's atheist. It's people that don't go to church. It's people that don't like religion. It's people that don't believe in God. And along with Islam. Islam was another fast growing religion. And he talked about how, and of course, when they lumped in Christianity, they lumped in Protestants and Catholics and stuff like that, So all of these people, when they talked about Christians, wasn't true, some of them wasn't true Christians. But for sake of talking, I'll say Christians. Okay, so Christians. And he's talked about why. He gave some reasons. And he talked to several people that didn't like religion, and they said, Christians today, they don't live like Christ. And this is what people are saying. And this is a lost man writing it. They said, they don't live like Christ. They don't act like they're real Christians. And that just struck a nerve with me, because I was like, that is so true. We come across many times as Christians just fake, and we don't come across as being real. So that's why I named the podcast Real Christianity, because we just don't need to be saved and being a believer, but we need to be Christians. We need to be real Christians. A lot of people just go to church on Sunday morning, and they just go to church on Sunday morning, and that's it. That's their Christianity. And they're not faithful to church, and they're not faithful to reading God's Word, and they live like the world outside of church. But we need to be like Jesus 24/7, 365 days, all the time, being like Jesus Christ. And so that's why I named it Real Christianity. That's why I named the podcast that. And it's also going to be some practical stuff, like how to have a great children's church program, and how to treat visitors at your church. And so some of it's going to be practical, but some is going to be like this, 3 ways that we need to serve Jesus. And so that's what the podcast is going to be about. And of course, my name's Ethan Jackson. And if you have any questions, you can email me at ethanjacksonnola@gmail.com. That's ethanjacksonnola@gmail.com. And I would love to answer your questions, and probably will answer them on the podcast before we get into the topics. Okay, so let's get into the lesson, and that is on serving Jesus. In Mark 10, there's a story of blind Bartimaeus. He had a horrible disease of blindness, and Jesus went to Jericho, and Jesus went over there, and of course, y'all know the story. He he healed Bartimaeus from his blindness, and Bartimaeus could see. But he also got saved. That the Bible says that his faith made him whole, and he got saved that day. But at the end of it, the story, it talks about how Bartimaeus followed Jesus in the way. He followed Jesus in the way. He served Jesus after he got saved. And that's why we're saved. We're saved to serve Jesus. And I have been an independent Baptist ever since I was born. I grew up in a Christian home. I was saved when I was 15. I've been to a lot of churches. My dad had pastored 3. We were at one before that he wasn't the pastor. We went on 3 years of deputation to come and start this church here. And we went to hundreds of churches from South Dakota, Nebraska, Missouri, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Oklahoma. I probably missed Arkansas. Probably missed a few states, but we went to a lot, Iowa, and we went to a lot of churches. And I've been to a lot of churches, a lot of independent Baptist churches, a lot of churches. And I see 3 things lacking in these churches. And as real Christians, we need to have these 3 things when we serve Jesus Christ. And you can look at our culture today, you can definitely see that we need to serve Jesus. We are in a culture that's anti-God. We are in a culture that they don't like the name of Jesus. In fact, a girl in my church basically wrote down her personal testimony. She gave it to a guest speaker that came in. The teacher had another teacher come in and speak about a topic, or I don't know, something. She spoke about something, and she gave her testimony on a piece of paper, and just quietly just got up, gave her testimony, sat back down, and later on the guest saw it and gave it to the teacher. Basically, she was told, you can't spread the gospel here. Well, that's crazy. She can't. She has the right to do it. It's the First Amendment, free speech. But that's the culture we live in. We live in an anti-God culture, and we live in a culture where churches aren't churches anymore. They're based on entertainment. And so what we need to do is be a real Christian. And when I talk about serve Jesus, is soul winning and reading our Bible, going to church, being involved in a ministry of your church, being a doer of the word, being a doer of the work, as James also says. And so what are 3 things we need to have when we serve Jesus? Number 1, we need to have commitment. We have commitment. There is not a lack of commitment amongst people today. There really isn't. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, what are we committed to? What are we committed to? We're committed to our hobbies. We're committed to our sports. We're committed to sleeping and relaxation and shopping. Whatever your hobby is or whatever. We need to be committed to God, church, and the Bible. That's what we need to be committed to. But the football players that kneel for the national anthem, that's not good what they're doing. That's being disrespectful. They're committed, though. That's why they're doing it, because they are committed to it. We have Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons committed to go door knocking every week and to spread their falsehoods and spread their lies. And they're committed to it. But we as Christians, we stay back in our comfort zone, and we can't be committed like we should be. Our theme for our church about 2 years ago was the word commit. And it wasn't, hey, you need to get committed. It was, you need to get committed to God. You need to get committed to the church and your prayer and Bible reading. And as I go to these churches, I see a lack of commitment in spiritual matters. We are more committed to temporal things than eternal things. We're more committed to things of the world than we are to spiritual things. That's why we're losing our country. That's why people don't want to get into religion and be a Christians, because we're not committed to Christ like we should, And think about all the people that are going to go to hell because we're not committed like we should be. We're not committed to come to Sunday night church. So think about that teenager that comes to the door of church on Sunday night, and in the back of their mind, they're really discouraged, they're depressed, and they just need to see some adults and other teens there with a smile on their face and shake their hand and say, glad you came to church. And this teen is even contemplating suicide, and you're not there, and they just stay discouraged because you're not there on Sunday night at your church, because you're simply not committed. You're more committed to go to do something else than the church. And we have a lack of commitment to the church, and we have a lack of commitment to prayer, and we need to get back to being committed. Muslims, they're committed. People are committed to strap bombs on themselves and blow people up in the name of some god. Football players, they're committed. They're committed to kneel and think they're doing something good. You know, someone said this: evil triumphs when good men do nothing. Evil triumphs when good men do nothing. And that's so true. That's so true. And when we're not committed to doing good things, when we're not committed to serving Jesus like we should, we're not committed to an organized soul winning time, then evil's going to triumph. Evil's simply going to triumph because we were more committed to go to a rock concert, or we were more committed to go to stay at home and sleep in, and we were more committed to go to our job and work than we are to simply come to Sunday school. And we're going to end this racism, and we're going to end the racism, and we're going to end this all the problems and the violence that we have in our country by Christians fighting it, by Christians standing up for right, by Christians being committed to do right. So we need to be committed, but we also need to be consistent. We need to be consistent. I'm going to go through these last two kind of quick, and then I'm going to tie all three together. We need to be consistent. We need, those football players, probably next Sunday, they're going to be kneeling. And the next Sunday, they're going to be kneeling. On Monday Night Football, they're going to be kneeling. And on Thursday Night Football, they're going to be kneeling. And that guy that's going to shoot someone, he's committed. He's going to shoot someone. And evil men, they're consistent on what they do. We as Christians, we just don't need, I went soul winning one Thursday. Well, I went on the bus route that one Saturday and one Sunday, and I went to Sunday school that one time, or I went to Sunday school that 3 times, and I know they have it 4 times a month, but I went to it 3 times. No, we need to be consistent. When we are committed to something, when we think, okay, you know what, I'm going to be committed to coming to church, then stay faithful. Don't just be, I went to 3 months, I went to 4 months, I went to 5 months, No. Be consistent in everything you do. So, be committed, be consistent, and then be compassionate. Be compassionate. When is the last time that you went out of your way to help someone? When's the last time you went out of your way because you were burdened for someone to witness to them? When's the last time you went to an altar and cried for someone to be saved, or beside your bed you knelt down and cried because you wanted to see your family member saved, or your friend or your coworker or someone else, brother in the church, or someone else's sister in the church, or something like that? You wept and cried and prayed. True compassion is true action. And if you have a burdened heart and you have compassion for someone, then you're going to tell them about Jesus. Then you're actually going to do something. But it starts with commitment. You got to commit to it, and then you got to be consistent about doing it, and you're going to stay doing it because you're compassionate toward that person. I'm glad someone was compassionate towards me. I wouldn't be saved, because if someone wasn't compassionate toward me, my family wouldn't be saved. A lady, our neighbor, walked across the street and knocked on my grandmother's door, invited her to church, and my grandmother went to church and got saved because the lady had compassion. She said, you know what? I'm going to go over there and knock on that door. And she was committed to it. And then she was consistent. And then she had compassion enough to go across. And now my dad got saved. And now I got saved. And I'm going to be a youth pastor because a simple lady from a church went across the street and knocked on someone's door and witnessed to her. And invited her to church, and she went. Think of all those football players that are kneeling. Think about those people that pick up a gun and shoot someone in Chicago all the time, and here in New Orleans all the time, and stab someone or rob banks. I wonder how many times as they were kids, a bus captain came and knocked on the door and invited them to church. I know some parents are going to say, no, the other day I was out witnessing, and I had a lady tell me, no, her kids are not going to come to church. I know, but I wonder if any of them got a tract on their door. If any of them went to a children's church and heard the gospel. I wonder how many kids, if they wouldn't have got saved, would be in prison today as adults. I wonder if any of those football players, wherever they came from, Michigan, California, Florida, Texas, I wonder if any of them ever had someone knock on their door and invite them to ride their church bus. I wonder if any of their parents were ever witnessed to. I wonder. I bet you someone that's truly saved and right with the Lord wouldn't be kneeling. Wouldn't show disrespect to the flag. They wouldn't pick up a gun. And I know Christians sin. I know I understand that. But the chances would go down really, really low. Because there was a bus captain that decided to join the bus route, and he was committed and he was consistent. He went out every Saturday, and he got on the bus every Sunday morning because he had compassion. How many people are going to wind up in hell because you're not committed to pray every day? And that means since you're not committed, you're not going to be consistent, and you don't have any compassion for someone. You could care less if they go to hell. You could care less if they get in church. We need to make sure that we're committed and that we're consistent in what we do and we're compassionate. We need to make sure that we're doing it and that we're being real Christians. I want this podcast to inspire you and to encourage you to serve Jesus. And all these episodes that we're going to do, all I wanted to do is just help you serve Jesus better. But we as Christians need to make sure that we're serving Jesus and that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. Because our country is in bad shape. And don't tell me that, oh, we can't have revival, because we can. You know, the hashtag going around is take a knee. Well, it's time that Christians took a knee, not towards the flag. You stand up for the flag, but you kneel to God in prayer for this country. And that you commit to that, and that you're consistent at it, and that you have compassion. So let me end this lesson by saying this. What are some things that you're committed to that you shouldn't be? What are some things that you are not committed to that you should be committed to? And then stay faithful at it and stay consistent at it. And then have compassion when you do it. And if you have compassion, you'll stay committed, you'll be committed, you'll stay consistent at it. So thank you for listening, and that's all the time we have today. And join me next week with a great podcast, and I hope that you like and subscribe to the channel if you're listening on YouTube or even on SoundCloud, and that you will take these podcasts and that you'll be encouraged by it. If you have any questions, email me at ethanjacksonnola@gmail.com, and I will love to answer them on the podcast. And always remember to keep God first.